Who gon' take it there? 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 Electricity, 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 electricity. You know what's in the air. 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 It's possibility. It's possibility. It's possibility. It's possibility.
So I saw this podcast that comedian Dan Soder did with other comedian Jordan Jensen. Dan Soder is a comic out of New York, sort of in the like bro style of comedy, not a particularly political comic or anything like that. Not really in either direction. He's not one of these guys who has bit on the right-wing propaganda, at least not for the most part. I'm sure there's some stuff out there that he said floating around. He's kind of a guy's guy. That's kind of his affect. But I think he's interesting because for the most part, what I've heard him say is like relatively progressive sentiments. He usually comes from this kind of like fence sitter perspective, and you'll see that a little bit in the clips that I'm going to play here, where it's like he doesn't want to consider himself left, but he shows a better understanding of what the left-wing positions are than 75% of people who talk about politics and like 98% of people who talk about politics from a right-wing perspective. And that's the biggest problem I see from either people who are like centrist, sympathetic to reactionary positions, and even some people who are straight up on the right or fans of Trump, is that they just literally don't understand what the left thinks. And I'm not saying that it's as simple as just telling them that. They've been told a million times, obviously. But the way that the propaganda they have absorbed has been delivered to them has like, you know, set up the framework in their mind very effectively. So to hear somebody get it right, you know, having one of these like casual bullshitting conversations about politics, but getting it right on the left-wing side, almost sounding a little bit more like how Stavros Halkias would sound talking about this type of stuff. You know what I mean? Where he's like, he's still pretty casual. He doesn't push it too hard. But at the same time, he's got a pretty consistent left-wing angle there. So that was the main thing I noticed about this interview that I wanted to highlight. But then going back and watching it again, I really wasn't planning on talking about Jordan Jensen that much. But I noticed on the second listen, that she said something about like Israel-Palestine here. She's pretty consistently gotten it wrong on that issue. She's gotten it wrong on a lot of issues to the point where I'm pretty much over it at this point. It's a shame because I think she's one of the more talented comedians on the scene. I think she's genuinely talented. But then I hear this section where she's talking about Palestine and Israel. And so I just had to highlight that. It's atrocious. And she's gone back and forth on this a little bit. I know exactly why she takes this angle that she's taking here. And I'll get to that later. But, you know, essentially, you know, neither of these guys are very smart, to be honest. But it's impressive to me that Dan Soder seems to be one of these guys who's like a normal, hey, I'm a guy's guy, everybody, you know, every guy, whatever. But he can articulate like some pretty subtle concepts pretty well as just having some like interesting and funny ideas here. So let's listen to these two morons swing above their weight.
That's why women can't be president.
Yeah,
because when they run, people are like, oh, it's my mom telling me how they want to run the country.
Oh, I don't want our vegetables.
Yeah, every time I go on stage, I have to be like, I'm not your mother. I am basically a man. But I do think that's what it is. I think Hillary, I think Kamala, people, I mean, they're annoying as fuck, but I do.
Kamala wasn't even fucking elected, so no.
Right.
That you can't even, like, they're surprised Kamala didn't win. It was like, yeah, you inserted her.
Yeah.
You did the thing little kids do where they go, okay, but so now Joe can't go, so Kamala's gonna go. But you can't be mad, and Kamala's gonna go.
Yeah.
You're like, why are you changing the rules?
Yeah.
The rules are vote someone in, have her run at the primary. Motherfuckers, you knew Biden was an exoskeleton.
Yeah.
That's why the Democrats, it's like, we're mad at you because you allowed all this shit.
Yeah, totally.
Also, fuck a two-party system. Get out of here.
What do you want?
At least 6.
6 parties?
No electoral college.
Of course.
Run on policy. No money in politics. No Citizens United. No lobbying. You literally have to be a public servant and make like $50,000 a year. And by the way, both parties did this. Democrats allow fucking corporations to be treated like people.
Yeah. You know what's weird about the Electoral College I was thinking about? All the people who are for the Electoral College are against, what's it called when you let in black people because they have to be represented?
equal action, affirmative action.
Affirmative action. Those people are against affirmative action.
But for electoral college.
But it's the same
which
thing.
Which is the affirmative action of states.
Yes.
It's like, because Iowa, you don't have anybody.
Yes.
So we got to make you important.
I don't get how that's...
Thank you for the corn and the wheat and all the crops.
Yeah.
But
the Israel stuff is really weird. It's all getting weird.
I'm so stupid that I shouldn't even... I don't have a solution. So why the fuck am I going to talk about?
Everybody has a solution. Every girl in Brooklyn right now really thinks they have if I hear one more person yell out "Free Palestine," I mean, what are they thinking is going to happen? We're going to walk up to a gate and go free.
You're free now. I think you hold the children of the powerful people accountable. Go after their kids.
Like...
It's like Netanyahu's son lives in Miami, and he's like, Joe Rogan doesn't want my dad on his podcast because he just knows that he's anti-Semitic. And it's like, no, you're a shitty rich kid. Yeah, just that's how you do change. Bully their children.
I think that's a good move.
Yeah,
Take him hostage.
Yeah. You're like, go bully Netanyahu's son. And he's like, Dad.
He's in Miami?
He's like, Dad, stop. I can't get bottle service at Live anymore. They won't fuck me anymore because you're fucking starving kids in Gaza.
That works sometimes. I mean, didn't that...
I'm just saying that fucking works.
That does work.
But yeah, so like I said, what I initially wanted to highlight here was what Dan was saying about the Electoral College and Citizens United, and he almost is even gesturing at some direct democracy kind of thing or something like that. And this idea about going after politicians' kids is both funny and it's kind of sharp. I mean, he's kind of onto something there. Could have done without the homophobic voice for Netanyahu's son, but I guess even when these guys are getting it right, they still got to get it wrong somehow. So I mean, I think that's interesting. To me, that's the perspective of a guy who has thought about this shit, but not necessarily from a political perspective. He's not really coming from a place of having a lot of information about this. You hear a lot of people casually pontificating about politics from a right-wing angle, even people who don't consider themselves right-wing. And that's what a lot of these podcasts have turned out to be, is people complaining about cancel culture, people whining about woke this or woke that. And a lot of times they're just rambling, not the bigger names like Tim Dillon or Joe Rogan, but a lot of these people are just rambling without really realizing where the talking points that they're repeating fit in. And I think, honestly, some of the most relevant voices on politics right now are people that don't consider themselves political. They do something else. They're comedians or whatever. They're just having casual podcast conversations, and then they talk about politics sometimes. And I think that the perspectives of people like that have become a lot more impactful, at least in this moment. And it's possible that the popularity of that style of content will wane and we won't have conversations like this anymore. And honestly, that'd be great. That'd be a welcome change. But as of right now, I do feel like there's a certain trust that people who speak this way have with their audience. And a lot of genuinely right-wing people have taken advantage of that by sort of adopting the same type of casual aesthetic in their way of delivering right-wing reactionary propaganda. So the thing about comedians is they don't really seem to have that much of a vehicle for critical thought about what they are saying. So a lot of times it's just something goes in one ear and then out the mouth, right? And so they're very effective vehicles for spreading right-wing propaganda. People like Joe Rogan, literally just repeating talking points. And so you don't see the left sort of propagandizing and propagating itself quite as effectively. Maybe in some instances, maybe a few years ago, there were more dominant left-wing narratives, or at least egalitarian, progressive, inclusive, that sort of thing. But nowadays, it all seems pretty casually reactionary. And even what Jordan says about Palestine here, just the casual dismissiveness is gross. I'm not giving her any grace on this because she has gone back and forth on this so many times. And, I know she knows better, but the reason that she's saying this is because she listens to Sam Harris. And I think Sam Harris is the only person that she's really listened to in any depth on this issue. She's talked about that before. And it's been interesting to see because, she was reaching for somebody to listen to on this issue. And she didn't want to listen to right-wing people. This was at a time where she was shifting her perspective and was, that's when I became interested. It's is she going to kind of drift against this reactionary trend that she was on? And then by grasping onto somebody like Sam Harris, who does present a generally liberal perspective often when it comes to just American politics, but then on the issue of Palestine, that he speaks very passionately and in detail about, And so she's fully stuck on that because she was a person who was looking for information about the subject. She was trying to find somebody who was going to tell her what the fuck is going on. A lot of people in America only just became aware of this pretty recently. And so they're looking for voices. And I think you got to be pretty shallow. If even Tim Dillon can recognize the shallowness and the hollowness of the Sam Harris perspective, then I don't really have any patience for Jordan Jensen falling into that trap and repeating this bullshit about what, are we going to go to the fence and just open it? That is such a racist and infantilizing way to frame that. And there have been moments, in my listening to the various things that she said about this, again, in hopes that she would, become a voice that could say some more progressive things. But I don't know. It seems like she just wanted, after bouncing back and forth, she really just wanted somebody who was going to kind of affirm the racist instinct, the reactionary instinct, that these are dangerous Muslims, radical terrorists. And so ultimately, the conflict is immutable, the genocide is immutable. What's happening in some sense was warranted, even if it's atrocious to see, even if it's horrible and we wish it could stop. I mean, what are we going to do? You guys have a solution? Everybody thinks they have a solution. I mean, people actually have thought about this. Just because you haven't, and the only person you listen to is Sam Harris and ChatGPT, doesn't mean other people haven't actually thought about this. I wasn't expecting to talk so much about that in this episode, but what are you going to do? Once I saw that, I couldn't ignore it, unfortunately. So it's a shame. Like I said, I think both these people are talented. Dan Soder comes away looking better from this interview. And look, I know we don't want to talk about comedians all the time, but I think the fact that they are casually entertaining and have large audiences, and they do talk about these things, is like not something we should totally ignore, because the right wing is not ignoring these people. And in some cases, you see instances where they are reaching out. They're reaching out to learn more. They want somebody to tell them what's going on. And so whatever we can do to fill that space that might reach people, either people with a voice or people without a voice, when they are seeking more information, that's what we should do. Because if we're not doing it, then Sam fucking Harris is doing it. Reminds me of what Michael Brooks, last thing I'll say is what Michael Brooks had to say about Sam Harris, which is that he is a hysterical person talking calmly. And I think that is great. You can never hear him the same way once you hear that. And that is the best way to put it. So one of many gems dropped by Michael Brooks. But anyway, I guess the last thing I'll do is play for you a clip of J.B. Pritzker, the governor of Illinois, responding to Trump threatening to send the military and the National Guard into Chicago like he's been threatening with other cities. Trump has already kind of waffled on this and said, oh, well, maybe we'll wait. Maybe we won't. Maybe we'll go in. Maybe they should be asking us to go in. I don't know. So here's J.B. Pritzker's response to that. We'll talk a little bit about that, as well as where this seems like it's going, and then I'll close it out.
To the members of the press who are assembled here today and listening across the country, I am asking for your courage to tell it like it is. This is not a time to pretend here that there are two sides to this story. This is not a time to fall back into the reflexive crouch that I so often see, where the authoritarian creep by this administration is ignored in favor of some horse race piece on who will be helped politically by the president's actions. Donald Trump wants to use the military to occupy a U.S. city, punish his dissidents, and score political points. If this were happening in any other country, we would have no trouble calling it what it is, a dangerous power grab. Mr. President, do not come to Chicago. You are neither wanted here nor needed here. Your remarks about this effort over the last several weeks have betrayed a continuing slip in your mental faculties and are not fit for the auspicious office that you occupy. Most alarming, you seem to lack any appropriate concern as our commander-in-chief for the members of the military that you would so callously deploy as pawns in your ever more alarming grabs.
Yeah, so I mean, Pritzker's raising the alarm bells here. He's saying that he didn't receive any correspondence. The state didn't, the police didn't, nobody in the state received any communication from the Trump administration about this. He says that they're finding out about it for the first time, like everybody else did in the news. So that's how Trump operates. And like I said, Trump is already kind of seeming like, at least for now, he's not going to do that. I don't know what kind of conversations behind the scenes led to that. It's unclear how much Trump is going to overextend himself before the people around him make it clear to him that he's overextending himself. And the reality is that the occupation of various American cities and other forms of escalation of authoritarianism can escalate very, very far before there's some kind of collapse of the system here. And if they can create a stabilized and centralized version of this Trumpist government that they imagine, then, you know, it very well could be like a sustained authoritarian takeover that we're seeing here. But for me, Trump seems a little bit more unstable than that. And, you know, the fact that he's already backing off of this thing with Chicago, maybe he just feels like it's not the right time. But they're just throwing all this stuff out there at once, like with Mexico, and just picking every fight possible. And so I think that strategy is only going to last for so long. But we'll see. As far as Pritzker goes, I don't think he's got the juice. I think he's saying all the right things here. I think he comes off pompous. You know, he has good moments. I'm glad he's putting up a little bit of fight here. But yeah, I don't know. We need somebody more unhinged. Like, we need to put somebody in power where it's like they might do something crazy. You know, like that's the only answer for Trump. That's the feeling that needs to come through when you listen to somebody speak, because that's the feeling Trump gives people, and it works. So the only way that we're gonna beat him back, especially on this like unhinged fascist shit, is like you gotta see more crazy than him. Come on, it's prison rules 101.